Fracturing international defense and trade partnerships have pushed Germany to announce an unprecedented new spending package. Defense spending is treated as the catalyst to ramp up the German economy, with a healthy dose of financing for infrastructure and climate protection as well. Europe's need for better defense capabilities is on full display, but as debates rage about competitiveness, both external to and within the continent, what does Germany's bold move mean for Europe's energy economy? You're listening to Energy Bites with ELS Analysis. Welcome to this week's episode.
Another week, another episode of Energy Bites with ELS. And today's podcast, we will direct our focus on the major German defense package that was presented last week and its new €500 billion fund for infrastructure and climate projects. I wrote my weekly comment about this yesterday for those who subscribe to it. And my attitude towards this new move from Germany is overall pretty optimistic. But I would like to take the opportunity to discuss this further with my very competent colleagues here today. So with me today, I'm joined by Samuel Chisuk, Carl Rosenberg, and for the first time, our energy analyst, Mari Björdal. So a special welcome to you, Mari.
Thank you so much. Hello.
My name is Elina Kinsey and I will be hosting today's podcast. So if we start from the beginning, Mari, could you give us the background and explain what's in this proposal that seemed to be gaining quite a lot of support from both within and outside Germany?
Well, yes, Elin. So the proposal laid out by the CDU consists of three key elements. First, it was regarding a constitutional amendment that ensures all defense spending exceeding 1% of GDP will be excluded from debt calculations. So in Germany, there's a very strict debt regulation in their constitution that primarily limits how much the budget can be funded through borrowing, restricting it to no more than 0.35% of GDP. However, they also have a mechanism known as special funds, which can be financed through loans. So what the CDU now proposed for Parliament was both to change the debt rules for defense and also to establish two special funds to cover infrastructure and defense. The first special fund, which is a defense fund, contains a €300 billion package and is aimed to enhance military capabilities in addition to the debt brake. And the second special fund is the creation of a €500 billion infrastructure fund. As part of the negotiations of getting this proposal through Parliament, they had to negotiate with the Green Party, and the result was that €100 billion from this fund would be dedicated specifically to climate-related policies. While the remaining money will be used for broader infrastructure investments, with €300 billion allocated on the federal level and €100 billion directed towards state governments. So all these proposals have now been approved in Parliament. However, the final spending decisions will be determined by the new Parliament during the upcoming budget negotiations. So we will yet have to see exactly where these will be allocated, but that is the main spending package that was approved last week.
Thank you so much for that, Mari. It's a massive package indeed, and it's also very interesting that it's a very broad scope and that we could see that it was just not a lot of money being sort of proposed by the incoming coalition, I guess, but rather that it came under scrutiny and you had to look into how the money would be spent. But that has also been part of the criticism, right, Carl, that there is not an attached real, direct strategy for how to spend this money. And I think the proposal, as I said initially, also was being welcomed by many, both outside and within Germany. But can you give us a little bit of an insight into what has been sort of the, at least, risk raised from different stakeholders when this was presented? Carl, please.
The loudest critique is that there's no concrete plan yet. We're talking about 150 billion in loans, and there's no clear roadmap on what capabilities should be prioritized and how joint procurement will be governed, or even which member states are actually committed to doing this. And secondly, sort of in that vein, the EU's own role is still ambiguous. What do I mean by that? Well, is Brussels just a financing vehicle, or is it trying to shape European defense policy? And right now, the Commission is trying to walk a tightrope, right? Offering money and industrial rules, but without any real command structure or strategic vision. And here, the EU's strategic vision has changed, right? You had the Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, coming out that the EU is a political project of soft power. Are we willing to change that? And that, then of course you have the strict economic arguments as well, that there is an interest rate problem. These are loans, not grants, and we're in a high interest rate environment already, right? For countries already struggling with debt limits, adding more borrowing to their defense spending may be a hard sell. And on the flip side of that, countries like Sweden, which is financially frugal, are they willing to pay off other countries' debts? And fourth, something which is gaining traction is that this risks unfair competition. By requiring that at least 65% of the procurement value stays inside the EU, the plan effectively excludes major defense players like the UK, like the US and Turkey. And unless they sign special pacts, they will be left out. And the UK has lobbied hard to be included in this initiative, particularly as they are what we call the coalition of the willing. UK defense companies, including BAE, are deeply integrated into the defense industry already in European countries, notably in Sweden. And, here's sort of the paradox which is at the heart of the EU's rearmament push. If the EU keeps relying on existing supply chains, including the UK and US firms, then yes, it gets that short-term efficiency and speed, which is definitely required at the moment. But at the same time, European production capacity stays limited. So you're essentially reinforcing the dependencies by increasing defense spending, not reducing them. So there are a handful of very valid concerns that the EU needs to contend with.
The question is only, is that criticism directed towards Germany now doing a push for spending more money, or is this more sort of a question of roles and the responsibilities within the EU and making this rearm EU work or not? But I think these questions were raised already during COVID, right, with Germany and the economical crisis following it. Sort of how you used state aid rules and the easing of state aid rules and how that benefited the German industry much more than other countries that didn't take the same opportunity to do so. But it was open for everyone to do so. So, I mean, this is, we cannot think about this as a one solidarity union where everyone has to do the same thing and everyone gets the same piece of the cake, right? But I would like to include you here, Sam, your view on these criticisms that has been raised. I'm just thinking, when I wrote my piece yesterday as well, I was thinking about what's the option here? Should we not see, these kind of action happening now when everyone says that we have, limited of time and actions needs to be taken? Please, Sam.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Elin. It's I think you're entirely right. I think it's spot on because now time is of the essence. There's quite clear signaling from intelligence agencies, from security people from the militaries and defense side that there will have to be a swift response in order for it to actually be efficient and to protect us. So worrying to get it all right bureaucratically first, and then coming up with a perfect solution is really the wrong way to go about it. We are in a hurry. We need to regain time, in a sense. We need to, or just repair what we've neglected for decades, and that needs to be the sort of guiding force. And then we'll need to sort of build and come up with better ideas and improve as we go along. And I think that is not necessarily the normal EU way of doing things. The EU has been good by putting in good regulation and, many would say today, over-regulation perhaps. So it will have to be done in a different way. And therefore, I think it's really good. The EU is good in raising money. It's good in making possible that we can, put in financial instruments, initiatives in order to open up national borrowing to a higher degree, do EU-wide borrowing. That's really good. That's what can be done quickly. But what I'm a bit worried about is here that there will be this knee-jerk reaction from the Commission and from other parts of the EU bureaucracy to sort of do what one has done sort of very successfully over crises and between crises also, to sort of just step in and try to sort of increase the build out of EU, increase the EU's reach. And that could be well. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that I've come down sort of and completely against EU in defense issues, but we don't have time for that now. We don't have time for politicking now. Let's all decide down the line, do we actually want to transfer competencies to EU here? Then let's do it in the right way. The thing is, the EU don't have the legal, we always talk about legal competencies in the different ways of how EU operates, right? But it comes down to a very practical level today. The competence does not exist. It's not the right people with the right knowledge in the EU to do this. Those people are also in Brussels, but they're in NATO. And we need to build on that rather, in order to get quick sort of bang for the buck, literally. We need to do that. We need to use the NATO level and the national level. I do believe that we should buy European as long as possible, and then buy from our closest and most trustworthy allies, whoever they are, to the extent that we can't do it ourselves. But let's be very careful in sort of before we start getting into competitions about which institution should try to move in. Now we need to do whatever we can to get the most practical results quickly.
Yeah, Carl, you had something to say there, but I would just like to also, we can talk about roles and responsibilities and how the EU is working and so on, but let's also come down to the issue of energy here, which is obviously our focus, because it's very clearly and directly interlinked with all of these spending or opportunities to spend money here. So please, Carl, give your comment, but then I would like to just include Mari here to just give a view on what kind of industry stakeholders or marketplace that has actually raised some sort of interest in what these money is going to be directed to later on.
I just thought I would add that with regards to the energy crisis, we at ELS talked about integrating short-term measures with long-term strategic plans, right? So if this rearmament plan is handled smartly, it could trigger, if I may use some EU bureaucratic language here, dual use spillover effects or something like that. And what I mean by that is that defense spending could also drive innovation and capacity in areas that benefit civilian economy, like cybersecurity, like aerospace, like AI and advanced manufacturing. So here I think Germany is a key example. It's doing the right thing right now, pushing a twin strategy, right? It's rearming through its special defense fund on one hand, but on the other, it's ramping up public spending in infrastructure, in rail, and the green transition. So that dual twin strategy, that's a very important. It can't just be defense spending.
No, and I completely agree with that, and that's what I said also in the beginning of this podcast. Like, that's what I think was so good, that this proposal actually came under scrutiny in the German parliament, that it was not just, a sitting government basically showing their muscles by saying, okay, we can spend this much money, but it was actually requirement coming from other parts of the parliament saying, okay, but where should you spend them? And I think here absolutely what you are saying is so good, and especially for our industry, because we've seen such a sort of not so much confidence in doing business, in doing investments at the moment. I mean, this can really pull that. And I think this combination of getting the green economy going together with defense, it's a perfect match, actually. I might, be a little bit bold by saying that, and maybe not very realistic, but I think this is the best way forward for EU, because that is the two of the most major priorities at the moment. I'm gonna come to you, Mari, but I can see that Sam wants to pitch in here as well. So I'll just let him come in, and then I like to hear from you from sort of the market reactions to the budget. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to continue on that theme, actually, because I mean we said already when or the EU said already together jointly, all countries, that we need to sort of repower EU, right? When the war in its current case started in Ukraine in 2022, and that that ball cannot be dropped, because it's not becoming less important; it's becoming even more important. We are rearming EU, but nothing, as we all know, happens without energy, and we will need energy for that. We will also need more resilient societies in order to handle a crisis, even war. So we need to continue doing that. And I think here there are some very interesting. I took heart, actually, from the fact that so much of the spending that Germany wants to do is on infrastructure. That's not only energy; that's much more than that, and that's so important, because transport. I mean, other areas of Europe need to put a lot of money into that too, not least Sweden, where we are sitting. But when we start focusing on defense now, we can't really sort of drop that ball of repowering EU and making sure that actually happens. And I think there will be a couple of tough discussions coming up, in particular where the EU very wisely now is looking at in different sort of documents that are going to, and recommendations that are going to come up this year, probably going to land in recommendations saying that we need to integrate particularly the power market even more in Europe. And what they then will point to most certainly is that there is a surplus in the Nordics, which is needed in order to get this reindustrialization and defending of Europe off the track. That needs to get down to continental Europe, that surplus. And that there is also an additional opportunity of building even more power in the north. Now that comes at a time when in Scandinavia, in particularly in Norway and Sweden, we've had increasing amounts of kind of anti-movement of that, and a protectionist debate actually about more export cables. Now this is a defense issue today. This is a strategic issue for Europe, and this will have to be resolved.
We need to return to our last name in Sweden, which is solidarity, I guess, in this sense. And it might be easier to push for that when the first name is defense rather than energy, I guess. But now I will really leave it to Mari to sort of give our view, or give the view on how the reactions has been from industry associations and so on.
Well, yes, and I guess the big question is exactly where this money will be allocated, because immediately after this spending package was published, a lot of different industry associations tried to kind of lay their claim on money, and there's a huge need of infrastructure investments in roads. And I mean, the National Railway Company, they said they would need almost a third of the entire sum of the special fund. But there were also a few energy industries tried to shape where this money will go to, including offshore wind energy group, who wanted to use some of the money for modernizing seaports to ensure expansion of offshore wind. And there's also been talks whether this money will be used for hydrogen projects. And in those discussions, especially considering 100 million of this fund is going to climate projects, that's also been discussed within industry. Will, for instance, green hydrogen infrastructure investments come from that part of the fund, or will it more be included in the other parts on either a federal or a local level? So I think a lot of different industries have said that how much they need and argued for why they should get it. But I think it'll be very interesting to see exactly how this will work out in the end.
Yes, and we should not forget about the ripple effects that will come from this, sort of where the demand for energy will just increase by, pushing money into certain industries, and that will have a ripple effect, obviously, on the production side as well. So even though we are not seeing perhaps direct funding of energy projects in terms of production as such, we will see a completely different demand structure, I think, going forward, if they succeed with everything that has been now laid on the table. So I'm seeing that we are a little bit going over time here. So I'd like to finish off by just, asking the weekly question. So what is on your mind, or what will you keep your eyes on for the coming week? I'd like to start with you, Carl, please.
Well, the Swedish government is set to table their proposal this week, outlining the financing and risk-sharing model aimed at encouraging new investments in nuclear power. So we at ELS will look at that very closely. I think that is going to keep us very busy for this week and the following week.
Thank you. What about you, Sam?
Well, likewise, I think I'll spend quite a lot of time looking at that. But also, I'm very curious what will come out of the talks just the other day here between the US and Russia regarding Ukraine. And of course, the continued debate about defense and energy in Europe.
And Mari, what about you?
Well, yeah, following on today's theme a little bit, the officially new discussions on forming the new German parliament started this week. So I'm very interested to follow along and see if they can actually come to a budget that both the CDU and SPD will be happy about, and continue to see how that forms and the budget that follows.
Thank you so much, everyone. This has been a great discussion and a theme that we will definitely come back to. Also, when we will see the other countries coming out with their sort of, action plan for how they will deal with this rearm EU as a whole. But yeah, so thank you so much, and see you, some of you at least, next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Energy Bites with ELS Analysis. To know more about our advisory offerings, email us at els@elsanalysis.com or visit our website www.elsanalysis.com. Follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date on our latest activity. We wish you a good and productive week ahead.